Check, check. What's up, y'all? How's it going? Let me fix my lopsided camera. Still kind of lopsided. Oh well. Hey everybody. What's up? What's up? Welcome. Welcome back to another day in paradise. Let me make sure. Can everybody hear me okay? If you're here in the chat, say hi. Would love to welcome you in. See who's joined today. I got some fun stuff to talk about. Let me see. Hang on one sec as we do this. Look at that. Somebody chat for me so I can see if my little overlay's working right. You should be able to see a live chat feed right there. Let's see who's on. Bit of an echo. Okay, hang on. How's that? Better? A little bit of an epic echo. I think it should be better now. Let me know. I know there's a delay. And my chat window is not working. Hang on. I know. Perfect. I had to mute one of my sources. Okay, hang on one sec. Let me fix this. Let me see if I can fix this. I want to get this chat window down, especially when we do Q&A. You guys can see the live stream of chatting happening. This my there we go. Yeah, sweet. It's a little skewed, like, I don't know if anybody could actually read that. I'll have to fix it for next time. I'm not going to mess with it today. But welcome, guys. Welcome, everybody. How's it going? Where are you jumping in from? We're going to hang out quite a bit today. I got some cool stuff to talk about. It's kind of tricky, like thinking of something new to talk about every week, even though anybody that knows me really well, I have no problem talking a lot. I don't know. It's just like coming up with something novel to teach on, right? Is tricky. So what I've been doing, I've been like compiling just a huge master list of everything that I could talk about, everything that we could explore together. And then I'll kind of pull from that. Like if I don't have anything novel to think, that excites me to talk about, I'll just pull from that. But today, this topic came up. I don't even know what made me think about it. I think because I was putting that list together. And I was just like, oh, this would be really fun to speak about today. Is my mic kind of low? It seems like the level might be a little low. I can turn it up. Check, 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 check. That might be a little bit better. That was probably too loud. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Check, check. I think that might be better. So yeah, today I was like last night I go, oh man, I have this method of simulating aphantasia and prophantasia that I use to help differentiate for people the different types of visualization that you can do. So I'm like, we should talk about that. That'd be super fun. Super fun and super useful. And actually, hey, South Africa, welcome, Hank. Awesome to have you. I'd love to go to South Africa sometime. I would love to go to South Africa. Right now, I'm in my digital nomad phase, so hey, that might be on the list. I think I peaked. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I don't want to be peaking on... I don't want to have the mic peaking on stream. But yeah, South Africa seems really cool. I would love to go there. If you have any recommendations, shoot them to me. Like where I should go. Austria, Cerebus, welcome. That's cool. Man, we got people from all over. I'm at an undisclosed paradisal location. If that's a word. Norway, heck yeah, Norway. I've only stopped through Norway at the airport. I wish I could have spent time there. I swung through on my way to Finland. But I used to have a bunch of Norwegian friends when I was living in Northern California. There was like a collection of them. They're so cool. Love their soccer. I had a good buddy who was really good at soccer. And Norway, man, that region up there, like all of Scandinavia, is gorgeous. It's so pretty. It's like, oh, I understand why fairy tale books look like this now. It was crazy. Like the topography of Finland was nothing like I would have expected. Just like lakes everywhere, speckled lakes throughout the entire country. It's gorgeous. I like this. Hey, it's working with the chat window here. Looks like the bottom one's cut off, but that's okay. Can you guys even read that? Like, it's on screen, and I know if you're on YouTube, it's a little redundant, but it's better for the recording. Can you guys even read that over there? On the side of the live stream? It doesn't look very legible, does it? Well, hey guys, I know I want to get started here and jump in. We'll save some time near the end for some Q&A and stuff like that. Eastern Montana, sweet. Victor, it's somewhat legible? Yeah. See, I could tweak it, I guess. It might not be too hard. Let me see. Let me see if I can No, actually, I'm not going to bother with it. It's so... I can make it a little bigger. Maybe if I just zoom in, huh? Ooh, let's try that. I'll just like zoom in a whole ton. Oh, it's like resizing. Uh-oh. See how it's resizing like that? Nah. I'll fix it. Next time I'll get it going where you can actually read it. It's just because of the skew I have on there. Oh, I know. I could get rid of these. It's not as pretty looking, but that might be a little more legible, maybe not. What if I... I think that's a little bit better. But now I don't like that it's not as cool looking. But that's okay. I'll fix it for next time. That ain't bad. That ain't bad for today. Should be a little bit more legible, barely-ish. Not. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started anyway. I want to jump right in. Even though I started late today. I was getting all this set up. I had my splash screen animation I finished just like 40 minutes ago. That took forever. But anyway, all right. So, simulating aphantasia. This is the topic of today. I'm hoping that this like gives you a good frame of reference for how to navigate conversations with people. Also, if you're watching this and you're not totally sure what type of visual imagination you experience, or let's say how to classify a certain experience that you had in the past or something like that, I'm hoping today really helps. And I hope that it like fills your tool belt with some things that you could talk to people about, that you could use to demonstrate different types of visual imagination even with people. Because the tricky thing about this subject when we're talking about visual imagination in all its forms, of course, is that it's subjective. So it's hard to pin down like exactly how something is experienced. And it's fascinating to me that this is like the first time we've tried to do this in our modern age. You know, modern psychology has been around for a long time, and yet we're only just now, since 2010, like, well, 15 years ago, but that's when the first case of aphantasia was starting to be documented. Not the first ever, right, but the first known case. But since 2010, it's like now we're finally starting to put these things into words. And we still have a long way to go because there's still a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstood definitions, things like that. If you know my work at all on this channel, on my website, the things that I've talked about and released, one of the biggest parts that I've worked on is trying to differentiate between what we call regular mind's eye imagery, right, and projected imagery. It's a huge topic and so important. You still see on the forums, you still see all the time the question that goes along the lines of this, wait, do people actually visualize when they close their eyes? Or they phrase it like this, do people actually see something when they close their eyes, right? I hope today, if you're anywhere on the fence of that question right there and you're not totally sure, I hope today clears it up. Or it gives you some new tools, So, plus, here's the last thing I'll say on that. If you better know how each type occurs, like what each type of visualization is like, then you'll better know where you're at and you'll better know what to work on, or like how to work on something if you're going to try to improve, right? If you don't have a frame of reference for what the mind's eye is even like, how are you supposed to develop it, right? You can. I've seen people make progress again and again. But it really helps to differentiate the different types of visualization like we're going to do today. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about mind's eye first. I had another peek. Oops, it's okay. Let's talk about mind's eye first. Before I jump into actually demonstrating and simulating aphantasia, I want to give mind's eye a definition. It's my favorite and chosen, like my preferred definition for mind's eye. So what is mind's eye actually like? If you break it down into a simple definition, it's this. Mind's eye could be considered the feeling of sight without seeing. Okay, the feeling of sight without seeing. We've talked about this in other live streams. Go check out some of the videos and stuff. If you are having any sort of sense of what the thing looks like that you're trying to think of, any kind of sense that could be visual, that might be mind's eye, right? And I like the word feeling there because it's not actually seeing anything. It's not physically seeing something, right? It's another type of thing that kicks in that, in my opinion, the best word for it is a feeling of sight, a sense of sight in the mind. So if you think of like, if anybody here is able to think of songs in their head, right, and sometimes has the experience of getting a song stuck in your head, this is a good parallel. So if you've ever had a song stuck in your head, it's in your thoughts somewhere, right? You're experiencing somewhat of the sounds to varying degrees, of course, depending on how well you can visualize that sound. Imagine that sound. But you're having the song play somewhere in your thoughts. It's not like you would get confused, like, you know, there's a Bluetooth speaker right here in front of me. It's not like you go, whoa, where's that song coming from in the room? It's not like that. And most people will intuitively, well, just by nature understand that they're not hallucinating, let's say, a sound in their environment that might sound like it comes from a speaker in your actual physical space. It's in the mind somewhere. Same thing for the mind's eye. So it's not seeing anything in your visual field, but it's in the mind somewhere else where you process thought from, right? So then, how do we define projected imagery? Because these are the two types of visual imagination that we're going to be simulating today. So projected imagery, my favorite definition for projected imagery is this: a visual image which takes up space in the physical field of view. So if it's something that you are physically seeing, now we're talking about projected imagery. It's no longer just in the mind. And to draw the parallel with the sounds again, getting a song stuck in your head, somebody with a regular mind's ear, let's say, they could think of a song to varying degrees of vividness and clarity. But if they had a projected song in their head playing for them, it would sound as if it was in their natural environment, that their physical ear was hearing it. It would sound like it was coming out of the Bluetooth speaker. That would be the projected parallel of mind's ear, right? So as soon as something becomes a physically perceived thing, where you are perceiving something in your physical field of view, now we're talking about projected imagery. It can be eyes closed or open. Okay. The big kicker when I sit down with people and I describe mind's eye and we go over the spectrum, which I already did on a live, I think a few weeks ago. The big kicker is once we're done describing aphantasia, hypophantasia, common phantasia, and hyperphantasia, that's like the 4 classifications on the spectrum. I usually, most of the time, I'll take a beat right after that and say, okay, most of these people, when they close their eyes, they still just see black physically. And I'll let it hang for a second. And people oftentimes will have kind of a revelatory moment when I say that, right? They go, oh, what? Okay, so they're still just seeing black, especially common phantasia and below. They're still just seeing black, right? And then I'll segue into describing the projected imagery side of the spectrum. Which, by the way, just as an aside, those two spectrums can very much overlap, especially if you are starting to get really, really relaxed or like falling asleep. Sometimes, especially if you're starting to slide into hypnagogia, falling asleep, right? You're on the brink of sleeping awake. Especially in that state, man, the mind's eye, sometimes you could have a mind's eye thing, but then when you kind of wake up out of it, you couldn't quite tell if it was actually mind's eye or projected, right? it's tricky to tell sometimes. Anyway, that's where that's the state where the two experiences overlap. When we're fully awake, they're very distinct. It's like you're either thinking of an image or you're having the visual, physical experience of the image, right? So mind's eye and projection. Okay. Now, what's the definition of aphantasia? Because that's what we're going to be discussing right now. Or that's what I'm going to help simulate, is the experience of aphantasia. As close as I've found, anyway. So aphantasia, as defined, is lack of visual thought, right? Lack of visual thought. So you can think of stuff, you can be creative, you can have imagination, but you're not thinking through those things in a visual form. So no thought in your mind has a visual perception to it. The feeling of sight is not kicking in with people that experience aphantasia. Make sense so far? Does this make sense? So I defined mind's eye, I defined projected imagery, and I defined aphantasia. Hypophantasia would be very weak mind's eye, right? We've talked about this before. You can check out my other stuff if you need further clarification. Does this make sense? Show signs of life in the chat if it does, if anybody's watching. I'm sure people are. Any questions so far? Because actually it would be good to ask some questions right now. And I'll go about, 20 seconds to see. How would you differentiate this is a great question, Victor. How would you differentiate projected image from hallucination? So hallucination would be like the out of control version of projected image, no different. So that's my definition anyway. Hallucination, you're not in control of it, can be unpleasant for people, right? Not desirable type of thing. A projected image is just something that you're intending to see, but it's the same thing. It occurs the same way, I'll say that. Okay, glad it makes sense. Good question. Good question. Yeah, so projected imagery is like basically an intentional hallucination, right? Very good, very good. Very good question. Very good. Okay. So, you ready to check this out? It may not work for everybody. Let me preface. These are just my subjective methods to elicit similar experiences as what aphantasia and prophantasia are like. Okay? So, just a heads up. Depending on where you're at on the spectrum, this might not actually work for you. Especially if you're like a baseline aphantasic. You already know what aphantasia is like. I wish there was a way that I could simulate for you mind's eye, but all I could do is describe it with language. But it's different if you already have a mind's eye. If you have even a little bit of a functioning one, actually, and this little action we're going to do together, activity, can help determine sometimes if people have a mind's eye a little bit better, subjectively anyway. Okay, let me make sure, hang on one sec. Let me make sure everything's set up the way I want it to so I don't give any spoilers before I start showing images. Okay. Ooh, I'm excited to see how this goes. Lock in, everybody. Here we go. So, if you are somewhere on the visual imagination spectrum, I'm talking right to you. This is going to help to simulate what the experience of aphantasia is like, hopefully. I can't promise that it would. We'll talk about why that is, why I can't promise afterward. Okay. All right, so here's the activity. Let me figure out. I'm so not used to streaming in my Stream Studio setup still. How do I want to do this? I think this one is the best. Let me make sure. Yes. Cool. My stream setup is so good now. I was working on it hard last night and today. It looks so nice. Okay. You ready? Here's something that might be, no, never mind. I was gonna have everybody comment. You can if you want, but I was gonna have everybody comment where you think you're at on the spectrum. So if you're aphantasic, hypophantasic, common phantasic, or hyperphantasic, but it's not super necessary. It's not super necessary. Here's the activity. We're gonna simulate aphantasia here, in my favorite method anyway. Here's the activity. I'm gonna share some words with you. I'm going to share some words here, and your job is to kind of observe what happens in your mind. Just observe. Don't try to make anything happen. Don't try to make any imagery come up. Nothing like that. Just observe what naturally happens. Okay? These are 3 very curated words. You'll see what I mean. Here's the first one. I should say this. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. If you know these words, if you know the thing that I'm about to say, don't say what it is. Don't say what it looks like. Don't say what it is. Don't say anything about it, okay? What I do want you to do is in the comments after I share the word, you can mention what you have happening, if not much is happening. Right? But if you know what these are, don't say anything. Okay. First word, ready? Eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Hey, that's my good friend, everyone. Say hi. I won't share her name because I didn't ask if I could. Eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. Observe what happens in your thoughts. Here's the first word, ready? I should actually type it on screen maybe too. I'll tell you and then I'll type it. I'll put that in there. Po-tu is the word. Po-tu. Let me spell it out. Bear with me because I'm not used to doing this kind of stuff. Hang on. Po-tu. Look at that. That was quick. Easy. Oh, yeah. Victoria, yes, that's my very good friend Victoria. All right, there's your word, po-tu. So just observe, you know. Don't try to make anything happen. Now what you want to do, especially if you're already a visualizer to some degree, is pay attention to what doesn't typically happen. Especially if you don't know what this word is. What you're probably not going to have happen is some elaborate image. Maybe some image comes to mind after some time, but the word po-tu, if you don't know what it is, probably did not elicit very much. And you can share what it did elicit. Only if you don't know the word, though. You don't want to spoil it. I'll wait a few seconds because I know we got a delay because of streaming. Just see if anybody comments anything. So now I'm going to take it into the next phase here. Next phase, this could simulate, if you're a hyperphantasic, this might simulate like well, hyperphantasics actually, they typically can't do this activity very well. Okay, so this is what I was going to say. Victor, what you just described is simulating hypophantasia for you. Undefined geometrical shape. Yep. Undefined even. So maybe, actually, that could be a good simulation of aphantasia for you because it's like not a clear shape, right? It's just some vague sense of non-visual shape. Yeah. Now, let's take it to the next phase. I'm going to describe this thing. I'm going to describe this po-tu. We'll try this a couple more times. After you see the process, we'll speed up on the next two. Here's the description of a po-tu. It has kind of, oh, you know what? I should pull it up for myself actually so I can look at it while I'm doing this. Hang on, give me 1 sec. Oh, don't spoil it. No, never mind. I'm not going to risk it. Here's the Po 2. It's got kind of Kiki Boba effect. I'm not even familiar with what that is. Here's a Po 2. It's got kind of a rounded sort of head. The feathers on it are sort of like, if you could imagine, like an owl. You're thinking about a Po 2? Yeah. And hey, stick around, Dirk, for the Prophantasia. We'll get there a lot quicker after this first one, because the Prophantasia is a good reference if you're experiencing aphantasia. So Po 2, rounded kind of head, big bulbous eyes that have no pupil, just black, and they're kind of big. They're like, they take up too much space on the front of the face. The body, there's no sense of a neck, but it has kind of like feathers that would kind of resemble an owl, like the down of an owl. The mouth is like this big gaping, just kind of triangular shape with a tiny beak that curves down. This is Po 2. This is a Po 2. So now that you've had a visual description of it, just observe again what is happening now in your mind. What's happening now that I've shared the visual description? And take note of the differences between just the word of it and the description of it now. What are the differences in your mind? You're practicing metacognition, by the way. Dissecting and understanding your own thought processes. This is quintessential for developing mind's eye. If you lack metacognition, you're not going to make progress. Or if you don't know how to dissect and understand how your thoughts are occurring, take some practice. Keep my throat oiled. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a Po 2. And you can differentiate between when you just heard the word, when you had the visual description, and here we go. That is a Po 2 bird. It's like a freaking Pokemon. Thought of the pieces of it you described, maybe try to blend them together a bit. Yep. That's great, Victor. And you probably had a much more visual representation in your mind versus when you just heard the word, right? And if you compare what you had in your mind when you heard the word only to when you had the visual description of it, these are the differences between, let's say, aphantasia and hypophantasia, or common fantasia, depends where you're at. Because if I say the description and somebody's, let's say, a hyperphantagic, their mind will take what I say and then fill in the gaps, and it'll be very vivid. That's why hyperphantagics, this exercise wouldn't quite work all the time. Because even if I just say Po 2, their mind might make an association with something else and then make it look like that, right, in their mind. And it would still be very vivid, but not accurate, of course. Dirk says, Kiki is a word that people might feel as a sharp and pointy. Boba could be described as round and bubbly kind. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yep. I could see how Po 2 would elicit something like that, right? Some vague sense like that, kind of like Victor said. So that's a Po 2. Now, what's interesting, if you want to kind of dissect your thoughts even a little bit further, now I'm going to take the Po 2 image away. But now that you've seen it, if you think of that scene of seeing the Po 2 bird just like I had the picture up, now compare. Now you might have 3 versions to compare. You might have the word-only version in your mind. You might have the visual description version, and you might have the actual image version. And if you recall back, you might be able to see or differentiate between those 3 versions of what a Po 2 is. Yeah, so Victoria, you had that. You had something like I was describing earlier. That's why this exercise is more effective for somebody that's a common phantasic or below. Hyperphantasics, their mind will typically make an association and boom. And there's just this image that the brain decides kind of fills in the gaps on, you know? Okay, let's do, I spoiled it. Well, now we have more time for Prophantasia. I spoiled it. Dang it, I thought I was on this black one, this black screen, and not the second one. Well, everyone, this is called, I can't even remember what it's called. It's called a dugong. It's like a man. You didn't see it? Well, now I really spoiled it. And now game over. Meet the dugong, everybody. I gotta figure out a way to not spoil the image and remember what the next one is called. Oh, I'm a goober. I know, Victor. You saw it? Yeah, see? Okay, so we'll skip right to the third one. It's okay, because we got some ground to cover anyway with Prophantasia simulation. And I'm taking forever. Coluga is the next one. Let me type it out. No. Coluga is the next one. Spell it. Coluga. Yeah, now everyone knows what a dugong is. But here's a coluga. Next one's a coluga. Yes, I'm on the right screen, so I won't mess it up again. Coluga. The most important part of the simulation is right at the beginning. If you sit on it, especially if you're common phantasic or hyperphantasic, if you sit on it, your brain will start making associations and try to come up with something. But right at the beginning, that's like the best example of what aphantasia would be like. Because if you're not familiar with this word, there's probably nothing coming. And then you sit with it, your mind might start making something. Ready? Visual description. Coluga. I have to hide my screen because I can't even remember what it looks like at the moment. This way I can kind of cheat and go over to it. Okay, so coluga. It's not easy to describe. It's got kind of like a furry, mole-ish head with big eyes, though. Like, think of like, I don't know, a shrew or something. Like a round kind of top to the head, and then its nose comes down into a nice little point. A little bit of whiskers coming off, but not much. The nose is not very defined. It's just kind of rounded, almost like a rounded bottle or something in the front of the face. Its mouth must be somewhere down underneath, but it might have a tiny mouth. The eye is big, like takes up a lot of space on the side of the head. And it's kind of brown with a black pupil, and this sort of grayish fur, but then right around the eye is like a white, more like a white tannish fur. The ears are very small, if there are any at all. They kind of look embedded into the side of the head. The arms are, how do I describe this? The arms are like lanky, but there's webbing all in between the arms to the neck and the upper part of the neck. So it's like this kind of fleshy, furry skin color on the inside, and its hands have no fur on it, right where the hand is, and then there's these claws, like these claws on it. This one in particular is hanging off of a branch. And then if you think about its legs, same thing, that webbing is everywhere. It's kind of like a flying squirrel. And if I said that, now it's going to get totally mixed in with flying squirrel imagery in your mind, if you can visualize. Okay, ready? I'll show you this now. So this is a coluga. Here's the actual image of the coluga. Ta-da! Oh yeah, that's not easy to describe. I didn't anticipate how hard it was to describe. I should just ask ChatGPT next time to do a very objective description for me. I'll just read it off. So, what you can do in the comments, feel free to describe the differences between the word itself, especially in that initial like 5 seconds, right? If you hang with it, your brain will just make up the rest if you can already visualize, typically. So differentiate and comment the difference between the word, the visual description, and now the image. Let me see. I don't want more spoilers. Not Q&A time yet. No. There we go. How'd it go? What did you notice? Like, what are some observations between your different types of thought processing for each stage? What did you notice? What are you aware of? Did you have a few seconds where there wasn't an image coming to mind? If you did, that simulates aphantasia. Because the way aphantasics experience something when they're trying to visualize something is typically they experience in words or phrases. Victor, yeah. Word, nothing, description, thinking of the features you said. Word, nothing, right? So you're just literally having the word. Just literally having the word. That is the experience of aphantasia right there. Imagine that for everything. Like imagine if you're watching this and you're aphantasic in some measure, imagine having that. Imagine it being able to not visualize any aspect of what you see or what you remember. Wild. It's got to be such a wild experience. I mean, they don't describe it as wild typically. It's it's just interesting, right? My brain kind of makes up a magazine cutout collage as you described them, trying to cross-reference for a full pic. Yeah, so when I'm giving the description, KV, your brain is like compiling from the things that it's seen before, right? And it's probably very vague. That's a good simulation of hypophantasia. As someone with aphantasia, I heard the word thinking it was a nautical creature because it sounded like beluga. Oh, yeah. So I guess I was thinking of words. Anyways, yeah. Now, what's trippy is even those watching with aphantasia, this kind of touches on a very effective exercise for developing mind's eye activity, is think of what the PO2 look like. Or don't try too hard here, right? Because if you don't have a mind's eye yet, you know, it's not going to be fully possible. But if you consciously try to hang on to when I showed the image in that moment of the PO2 of the, we didn't do the second one, but let's do the third one here, the coluga. If you're consciously trying to hold on to the memory of that, sometimes what people find after practicing that a lot is they may have some super vague sense of color kick in, but maybe without the shape. Maybe the just sense of color of the greenery around the PO2 or the feathers of the PO2. Or maybe the fleshy color, right? But no sense of shape. If that starts to happen for you, then, and it's not just the word flesh color, right? Or the word green, or the name of a color. But if it's the conscious experience of a color itself, not an emotion, not a name, then you might start to be breaking into mind's eye just a tiny, tiny bit. Or it could be like shape without color, just a sense of roundness. These are like descriptions of hypophantasia at the bottom of hypophantasia anyway. Let me catch up. This was helpful. Oh yeah, there's nothing at all, and slightly annoying not to be able to land on anything. Yeah, for sure. That's exactly how aphantasics process thought, right? Just a word, just a descriptor, just a list. They might be able to think of their front door, but it's like a list of descriptors that run through their mind. Typically, I have to say typically. That's not all the that's not for everybody across the board that experiences aphantasia, but that's the typical way that people describe it. Name, you guessed it was a bird. Description guess was more of a monkey. Oh yeah. It's hard to hold concepts together when I can't generate visual data. Yeah, for sure. Helpful to understand what is happening here for those with aphantasia. Yeah, yep. The experiment worked. Ah. I've only done this with like a few people, on calls here and there. Actually, it was kind of like a new exercise that I created for my program that I started incorporating maybe last summer, I would say. I found it very useful. Especially as somebody starts having mind's eye activity kick in and they didn't have much before. Like this exercise right here is very useful because they can tell the difference between these 3 different stages in their mind. Pile of concepts, yeah. Now, what's interesting, Dirk, is the word, I look for 3 different red flag words for me that may tell me that somebody actually does have some measure of mind's eye. It's when somebody says, I can't visualize it, but I know what it looks like. That's an indicator I need to dig in deeper. They may not have mind's eye, but a lot of times people use that word when they're like right hovering around the edge of mind's eye or not able to classify it correctly. So no concept, I don't visualize, but I get the concept of it. And then the third one is remember. So if somebody says, I can't visualize it, but I remember it, they may actually be thinking that they may actually have visualization happening to some degree in their mind, but they're misclassifying it for prophantasia. Not all the time, but those are 3 big like red flag words that I try to look out for a lot, all the time, when I'm first talking to somebody and trying to get an idea where they're at. Victor, you can say there was a difference between the word and description, but can't put it into words. Oh, okay. So you might be experiencing hypophantasia on more as like a standard for you, as your standard experience. That's typical. Dirk, unfortunately you have to leave. Oh no. Oh yeah, this will totally be uploaded. All of them will be. So on my YouTube channel you can see the tabs of different types of videos. There's one called live. All of the live streams get uploaded, get posted into there. Eventually I'll start cutting them down too into like bite-sized little 5-10 minute videos. That's my intention. Henrik, I experienced a sort of semi-visual conceptual flash of a body part, cartoony bat. Yeah. What was also clear to me is that when hearing the description of the animal, it felt difficult to make some form or shape without any frame of reference. Totally. That would simulate hypophantasia for you, Victoria. Okay. Useful, right? Like super useful. Oh yeah. Now you can always say to someone, if they're talking about aphantasia, they just can't wrap their mind around it, you can always say, think of a PO2. And they'll be like, what? What is that? Exactly. Okay. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Dirk. Thank you for thanking me. It's just stuff I'm fascinated by. All right. Next. You ready? Let's simulate prophantasia next. This will be fun. Simulating prophantasia is very easy. And I find the most effective way to do this is just by using after images. So let's do it. There's not much description that even needs to happen. I'm going to show you an image, very simple image. And your job is to stare at it. We'll stare at it collectively for 20 seconds or something. And then I'll pull it away. And you will have some measure of an after image, kind of like when you stare at a light, right? Or you look at the sun, there's that blotch. You'll have some measure of an after image left in your visual field. This simulates prophantasia really, really well. So, here we go. There's our friend, the Kaluga. Ready? Let's take a look at this image. Don't need the text anymore. Hang on. Take a look at this image. Stare right at the center. Hold your head steady. It's okay if you blink too. Just look right around where you started at. We'll take about 10 more seconds to just let the image kind of burn into our retina. It's not burning, by the way. It's your retina's rods and cones are getting fatigued, stimulated. And it takes a while for them to shake off the stimulation. All right, let me see. Yep. Is that right? I hope that's not going to spoil the next thing. Okay. So here comes just a white screen. Now with the after image in your visual field, check it out. You should see like a dark triangle. And that's just a white screen. So there is no dark triangle. If you look around, it'll stay where your eye is looking because it's not actually anything on the screen. Voila! If you close your eyes too and you turn your head specifically towards a light source, it makes it a little bit easier, like a lamp or something. But if you close your eyes and look towards a light source, you might still have the impression of the triangle come back. Because by now your triangle on the white screen is probably fading a bit. This is how you simulate prophantasia. This is like almost identical to a baseline prophantasic experience because it's in your visual field. Ta-da! Not hard, very simple. Now notice the difference, right, between what we did with the images earlier and the words, potu, koluga, and what we're doing right now. There's a clear differentiator between something that's physically seen and something that is occurring just in your mind. At least there should be if you dissect it a little bit and ponder it. Yes. What are you guys observing? What's the observation here? Hey, we got 15 people on the stream. Welcome everybody. Hello, hello. Lovely. I'm always surprised that people are watching. And honored. Thanks for coming. So what are you observing? What do you think? We're going to play with a few more after images, but I want to hear. I want to hear so far. What's up, F5 dude? Welcome to the stream. We're simulating aphantasia and prophantasia right now. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Yeah, classic after image. I thought of creating another example that simulates prophantasia more at a baseline because this example with that hard-edged triangle, that the after image you just experienced would not be like very baseline prophantasia. That would be pretty advanced prophantasia because the edge of it is very clear. And then when you close your eyes, the entire shape is filled in. That's not baseline prophantasia. But I was finishing like the other stream setup stuff, and I just ran out of time, which is why I started 10 minutes late too. So classic after image. Ready to play a little more? This next example would be like a super clear, like huge, like extremely adept prophantasic. This is not regular at all, not baseline at all. You'd have like a step below what we just did would be the baseline of prophantasia, quite a few steps actually. What we just did would be like more moderate to advanced prophantasia, and then this would be like extreme prophantasia, where if somebody could do this, send them to me. I want to pick their brain and study them. So we're going to use this after image, this negative image here. Oh, I got to share my screen. That would help. Oh, before I do that, let me read what you guys are saying. Dim, disappears after a moment, comes back after looking around. Yeah, if you close your eyes, look at a light source, it'll bring it back. It might even still be hovering a little bit, even now. The triangle floated upwards on the white screen, and one edge developed a thin streak of each color. Oh, you're like doing something I don't do, Victoria. That's cool. My profantasia is not very strong when I'm just fully awake. You can kind of zone into it and maintain the image much longer. Yeah, and that's one of the ways to develop better profantasia too, is bring back after images. Kind of like Casina does sort of something like that. Let me see what Hemrick says here. Would someone experiencing profantasia be able to visualize this triangle in their visual field while eyes closed? Yes. Yep. Like I said, but that would be like a pretty advanced measure of profantasia, having the shape all filled in and that clear, that defined. That's not usually where profantasia starts. But yeah, if somebody just no after image, they close their eyes, you can project images like that. Yep. Or onto a wall, or into your environment. It helps if the background of what you're trying to project onto is just a solid color, like the sky or a wall. Like this color back here for me is perfect. I could look back there and make a triangle appear or a square or whatever. Yep. Ready? Next one. This is like crazy advanced profantasia. Don't take this as what most people do, okay? I can't say that enough. So you can just stare at one spot, right? Pick a spot to stare at. And we'll go for about 30 seconds. I want the example of it to be real clear and crazy. So we're just going to stare at it for a good long while. Good long while. Maybe about 15 more seconds. Five more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Keep your eyes still, so don't look away yet. Keep your eyes still and watch. Oh, you probably had a flash of her face just for like a split second. Now, if you close your eyes, this one's better. If you close your eyes, turn your eye towards a light source, and you will have a pretty interesting looking after image of her face. Mine faded pretty quick though. If I'm changing contrast, like looking at the light source in front of me where my window is and the dark, it can kind of bring it back and make it a little clearer. So especially right at the beginning, that initial pop of that after image, that is like crazy level. That would be like if somebody can do that when they're awake all the time, that's wild. Send them to me. I can actually do this if I'm in the right state. Yeah, you can still see her. Yeah. Yeah, this is like, I've only spoken with maybe 4 or 5 people, and I never even got the chance to jump on a call with these people. But I've only spoken with 4 or 5 people that reported this level of profantasia just as their normal operating mode. It doesn't seem common at all. Yeah, real-time colors. Yep. That's why you use an after image for that one, or the inverted colors, because when you get the after image, it's like the real colors, the normal colors. Faded into triangle quality in less than a second. Yeah, it faded pretty quick for me too. Okay, let me see. Let's do one more. Oh, there's my white screen anyway. Okay. Let's chat for about 30 seconds more to give our after image, our retina, a little more time to relax. That's cool, right? So I can do this. I can do that measure if I'm in the right state, but it's not all the time and it's not very consistent. I'm getting to the point in my prophantasia development where the shape one, I could pretty much do that most of the time. Like where maybe it's not quite as defined on the edge, but the shape is filled in. I can do that most of the time, most days, unless I'm really off one day or something. This measure of prophantasia that we just played with, I have to be very relaxed, very kind of in the zone, right? Especially when I'm waking up. Ooh, I've had prophantasic things happen when I'm waking up, like every day for the past couple weeks, to that degree, to what you just saw. But as I wake up, it fades. Welcome, Opal Man. What's up? Boy, you weren't expecting that? Yeah, it's a good one. Pull people from TV when you're in the right state? Shoot. Like prophantasically, like we're doing? Like where you have a projected kind of hologram of them in your visual field? If so, that's pretty cool too. Ep5 dude, one of my thoughts. I should share the chat window for those watching after. One of my thoughts for why I can do prophantasia in that state and not in a fully waking state, yeah, is due to brainwave states. Because you're more in that, like, in between, you're more on the border of sleep, right? So let's do this last one because I want to make sure to leave some time for Q&A like I just showed you. All right, last one, ready? Make sure it works right, yeah, okay. So go ahead, I'll fill it up a little bit more here. Stare right at that dot. Do I have? It's okay. Stare right at that dot. We're going to go about 30 seconds worth. I want it nice and burned in. Nice and burned in, my laddies. Come on now. All right. If you watch me enough, you'll hear lots of bad accents. When I coached gymnastics, all the kids would just say, "Why are you speaking French?" No matter what accent I did. Okay. Here it comes. Don't look away. Looks at the same exact spot. I think it's one more. When I click forward, it'll do the objective slide. So don't look away. Here it comes. Oh, one more. I think here it comes now. Ta-da! So look at that dot. You see how you're seeing a colored image? Don't move your eye. Looking at the dot, you see how you're seeing a colored image right now? Now watch this. I'm not touching nothing. I'm not gonna mess with it. Move your eye around. It's actually a black and white image. But if you look back at the dot and relax, you'll get a little bit of the color still, but as it starts to fade, it'll start looking more and more black and white. Oh! that one's just fun because it so clearly like alters your visual field with your eyes open, you know? So prophantasia wise, like Jung, actually the psychologist, the philosopher, he proposed that people with extreme tulpa ability, what we're calling prophantasia, could alter colors in their environment. So theoretically, if somebody had like extreme prophantasia, they could look at this image, black and white, and make it appear in color. Like force their visual field to form colors where there's not color. I could not do that. Yet. I won't say can't. I don't like that word. I don't like locking myself into inability. But where I'm at right now, I would not be able to generate that same experience. Like force my brain to see a color where there's not, right? Yeah, that's a good one, right? I like this one because it's just fun and gives you an example of what like a super prophantagic would be able to do with color. Man, I wish I had made an image. I guess we could make it together. I don't know. Like, how long do people like hanging around for? I guess people swing in and out, right? But we could make an image. Let's take a freaking vote. Community rules. If you guys want to see me make an image of what a baseline prophantagic image would look like, because we're not starting with like pretty advanced shape projecting, I will totally do that. I could totally do that live on stream, make one on Photoshop right now. I ain't got shit to do. I ain't doing nothing. What am I doing? I'm hanging with you guys. And then we could do it with that image. You get an idea of what it would look like to do like a baseline prophantasia projection just at the very start of it. Well, dedicated one, it might not have anything to do with aphantasia. What if it doesn't? It actually does have a lot to do with aphantasia because a lot of people misunderstand and misclassify projected imagery with the mind's eye imagery. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with that come into my first call, right, where I discuss things with them and try to help them. They come into my first call saying, yeah, I experienced aphantasia, but what they're really trying to communicate is they experience a lack of projected imagery. They may have a functioning mind's eye, right? So having a reference point for how that looks, projected imagery, can really help. Really, really help differentiate between what's aphantasia and what's not. Bada bing. What do you guys think? Should I do another make an example on screen? I could totally do it. On stream, I mean. Let me see what comments we got. Mind's eye sometimes experience this clear. Oh yeah, if you think of your mother, can't visualize her, but you can have a very sudden flash of a known photo of her. Yeah, for sure. Momentary, right? It's fleeting. It kind of runs off. Done that a couple times by focusing in a really odd way with my eyes. Done what? I saw that comment a little late. Sorry, Tyrone. It was colored for a very short second. Yeah. Colors in eyes open? Yes. Like advanced prophantasics might be able to produce color just from their looking with their eyes open. Like let's say they have a white, this is a white earbuds case. They would be able to, or my shirt, obviously. They'd be able to look at my shirt and make it red. I haven't met anybody that does that a whole lot. So let's make an image. Let's hang out some more. I got nothing to do. Shit. What am I doing? I'm sitting here. I'm playing around with this stuff. This is what I do all the time. If I'm not on a video game, I'm just working on stuff and freaking brainstorming about reality and perception. Do another? Okay. Well, hey, you can catch it later. Hey, what's up, Pixel Gems? Ali, good to have you, man. Or woman, I shouldn't assume gender. Welcome. Great to have you. Stoked. Let's do another one. This one I didn't have time to make, though. My hair is bugging me. This one I didn't have time to make, so I'll make it live on stream with everybody. Let me rearrange. Actually, I need to create a new scene real quick in my streaming platform because I want to show chat at the same time. Oh, it's going to cut my video right now. Can I lock somehow? Ah! Where'd you go? No. There's got to be a way I can lock which one I'm showing and like cue another one. I guess not. Yeah, because I want to show the, okay, bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Let me just do this real quick. Built-in retina display. Okay, you have my screen on your screen. Whoa. Let's do fit. Bear with me, bear with me. Bear with me. Let me open up. Photoshop. There's my logo making. Okay. We could do 1080 by 1920 by 1080. So I did a white shape, right? And then just so it's not so boring to look at, let's do this. Oh, I know. Nope, never mind, get out of here. Get out of here. Come on. Let's do this. I'll just copy this to here's. Oh, look at that. Making quick work of it. And then I'll copy this to here's. But you don't want to block my face. Let's just do a crop here. If anybody live streams and you need, well, you want something that is not OBS and so hard to work with, I used to use OBS. I recently switched to this, which is called Meld. I would highly recommend it. Because Meld is just so pristinely easier to do quick stuff like this. Like if I was going to do a quick setup like this with OBS, it's just a nightmare. On-screen chat. What happened? Oh. I need to update the URL of the chat. There we go. Okay. All right. I won't spend too much time on it because this was so slapped together. So what are we doing? So I just got done with my demonstrations. We demonstrated aphantasia. We demonstrated prophantasia. Make sure to go back and check those parts of the stream out. They're all posted onto my YouTube channel when I'm done, because it was pretty useful. It actually worked really well. Let me see. Is there an exercise that shows stages of common fantasia? I don't think I could go for example. Tell what was present in the scene I visualize. So demonstrating common fantasia, not so much, but my imagery that I created for my chart, I find that to be the best example of like different stages of common fantasia. But I honestly, I want to redo that chart. Maybe this is a project for this next week. I want to redo my chart to illustrate a 10-point scale, because I find 6 points of degree is just not quite enough. So yeah, the best thing to do is like to see an image, like this classic one that I have, right? There's very little it's hard to pin down like differences between stages of common fantasia. And this image isn't quite accurate enough. I want to redo it. But anyway, like this is a little fuzzier, see, and then the bars start coming in here. That would be like a good example of somebody at a lower end of common fantasia versus somebody that's higher. Good question. Total aphantasia, Miriam? Oh yeah. Did you just jump in? Because we did some demonstrations that are really useful. Right now, I'm gonna create a new demonstration of prophantasia. I had the thought to do this before I jumped on stream. I just didn't have time. But I figure we're just hanging out, and why not? I can make some good videos out of this anyway, so. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I just want people when they come in, to be able to know what we're doing and not be so left out of the loop if they're jumping in late. Okay, so I'm gonna get into like Photoshop mode here. I'll keep looking at chat too. Let me know if you guys have questions and stuff. Let me rearrange my chat window. That's perfect. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like that. Like this. If I do a very horrible impression of your accent, please don't be offended. You could do a totally gnarly impression of where I grew up, bruh. California. Okay. I'm keeping my eye on chat too while I'm doing this, guys, so. Oh, yeah, and you can see it too. That's all right. Whatever. I'm just going to keep going. Okay. Open eye flashes or specks of light still called phosphenes, or would that be something different? That's a phosphene. Yep. The classic definition of a phosphene. Absolutely. Absolutely. This version of Photoshop kind of is finicky with the zoom out function. Okay, so I'm going to try to make like a baseline after image of what prophantasia would look like at just like the very start of it. It would only have the outline like this. Okay. So let's just do this first. Can you like center, man? I can't tell where center is, whatever. Let me think how to do this. Let's do an adjustment layer. If I can remember how. Oh, I forgot. It doesn't work the same. Like, it's easier for me to do that in a different program, in After Effects. I know. So let's make it nice and wide like this. Let's do something like, make this one way less wide. Maybe like around there. Nope. Just for ease, I'm going to change the color. To see the different layers. Here we go. Oh, look at this. What is a good way to train the mind's eye when I sometimes experience detailed flashes with no control and I can't produce them at will? You'd want to train like a hypophantasic. So what you'd want to do is try to get your brain to hang on to the image. This is obvious. Captain Obvious Alec right here. Try to get your brain to hang on to the image longer. And to do that, it helps to be in like slower brainwave states, I've found. By the way, this question's really good. But I will say this, it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. So anything I recommend may not work for certain individuals. Just keep that in mind. It's definitely not, we don't have it down so well yet to be such a strong, beautiful science yet. But yeah, brainwave states, on my mega guide, Henrik, if you've been on my blog, there's something called a mega guide in there. It's all my open source visualization training information. On that, there's an exercise called memory streaming. That would be pretty good for what you're talking about. So you get really relaxed first and then memory stream. Yes. Okay. So now, this one, we're going to go like here. If this turns out like terribly, don't judge me. Let's rasterize. Oh boy. Oh, what? Oh, no. Brah. There we go. I'll just rasterize everything. Rasterize is when you make something when you solidify it into pixel form. So it's not a smart object anymore. Then you can't tweak it, but it makes it easier to kind of adjust. Yeah, kinda. We're sort of getting there. I know there's a way to do an adjustment layer. I just don't remember how to do it. That would be easier for what we're doing here, but like, oh, yeah, kind of like that. And then if you, oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Here we go. Look at that. Oh, yeah. This will be really interesting to see how you guys experience this once we're done. Sometimes you try to catch it and experience in a video VR, like, since that's cool. Yeah, so phosphenes, like the little flashes, and then the phosphene waves, what I've termed phosphene waves, there's not a name for that experience yet, but it needs its own freaking name because it's so common. I find that those can be used to develop some greater prophantasic experiences. Okay, let's do this one next. So I need a hard white. Yep. And then we're going to blur this out. I hope this turns out good. I think it's looking pretty good so far. I need it like... It's honestly too clear still, I think. It's like a little too defined. Let's just see. Definitely way too defined right there. Bruh. Photoshop is annoying because it always shows that bounding box. And when I used to click up here in previous versions, it would get rid of the bounding box. Bruh, I don't want to... There we go. Control click. Okay. This would be still too clear of a prophantasic image to like simulate baseline prophantasia. Let's see if I can get it there. I think we're close. So I'm going to put another Gaussian blur on this bad boy. It's kind of getting there. It's kind of getting there. This is way too clear still. What did I do? I set them all to 6. Whoops. Come on. Come on. Let's see how this goes. Let's try this. Let's try this. I think we're pretty close. So I'm going to just export this real quick. I want to see what kind of after image we get on this. All right. Move this over here. You ready? Are we ready? Actually, I want to save it. Porque es muy beneficial. Okay. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to full screen that. Yeah, we'll use the white as the after image viewer. All right. Here we go. Ready? So now just go ahead and stare right here at the center right at the center. We're going to go about 30 seconds. This is a much dimmer image, so it might take longer to kind of get the rod and cone cells fatigued enough to have anything show up. It's almost like disappearing for me as I'm staring at it. It's just an ocular phenomena. Illusion. Motorcycle going by. So we'll go for about, I don't know, 20 more seconds, I'd say. Stare right at the center. Ten more seconds. When I shift the image, don't move your eye. So you're going to stare right at the same spot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like now the mind is fading a little bit. It's not bad. It's not bad. That's pretty baseline. Like that would be a pretty baseline prophantasic experience. Maybe a little too vivid. Just a little bit though. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Tiny, tiny bit. Is it still there? Oh, so now that the after image is fading, now it's much better actually. Now it's much better. That's a baseline prophantasia. For me anyway right now. Everybody's eyes are going to be different. But for me, yeah, that is much more accurate. It's like barely there. That's where prophantasia starts for people. Like barely anything. No defined edges, you know. Definitely no colors like we saw earlier. What are you guys experiencing? I'm so curious. That was fun. That was fun making that right now. Just drinking my water. What'd you guys have happen? How was it? I'm so curious. No, wrong one, sorry. That. There we go. What'd you have happen? What'd you have happen? I'm curious. We had a lot of viewers today. Thank you everybody for joining. It's been super fun. This has been a great one. A great sesh today. At first, almost like the first triangle, but quickly faded to just edges. Lasted about 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, so it like faded real fast. If you look, is there any sort of impression of it still? It might even be on the brink, like just barely on the edge, where your brain might go, is there or isn't there? That's baseline prophantasia. The brain is kind of going, is there or isn't there? That's where prophantasia starts. Great example of what aphantasia is not talking about. Great example. Important example. Example I still talk about all the time because it needs more clarification. All right, let's shift gears. I'm just going to leave it open at the end here. Most streams I'll do this. Let's leave it open a little bit for Q&A. You know, you have questions, you got stuff you want to ask me, run by me, things that we talked about today, what your experience was like. I would love to hear how you found the stream today, what you had happen, you know. And then let's do this. I just feel like putting on a little music in the background. You can let me know if it's distracting. Oh, I need to update my chat URL. Hang on. So then we get the live chat. There we go. Okay. Q&A time. What's up, guys? What'd you think? That was fun. That was super fun. Thanks for hanging with me too while I made that other example. We got really close to the baseline of aphantasia. I think if I tweak that image a tiny bit more, I could get it exact. Because prophantasia is just so not clear at first. Simulating aphantasia, new for you, and maybe shine more light on your own experience. Heck yeah, that was my hope. This is why when I thought of this topic last night, I was like, ooh, that would be fun. You know? I may have to do these like every once in a while where I give simulations like this because, yeah, it can be super clarifying, right? I found it very useful for when people are working on developing more. So if somebody doesn't have a mind's eye and they start to have a mind's eye, or like a hypophantasic trying to take it up into common fantasia, oh man, that exercise with the animals or whatever, it doesn't have to be animals. It's just easy to find weird named animals where you wouldn't have an association with what they look like. That exercise can really be a turning point in differentiating the different types of thoughts that somebody's having. So that's where like hypophantasics can start to recognize their own common phantasic thoughts because there's such a clear distinction. Wish there was something that could simulate a higher level of common phantasia. Let me think about it. It's tricky. That would be super tricky because when trying to elicit like an experience in your mind, there's so many variables and it's so individual, right? It's just, I happened to stumble on this idea, like I just spontaneously came up with that idea last summer to develop a method to simulate aphantasia. I don't even remember how I thought of it. But I think the best thing for simulating common levels of common phantasia would be like a video or like just a visual aid of some type, you know? And then you'd have something to measure up against with your mind. But of course, like even if I come up with better visual aids for that, it's so individual, it's not going to account for everybody. I guess you could say it would be average, like the average experience though. I have to move my eyes around to keep objects in focus, otherwise my visual snow creates a blind spot. Oh, you got some real strong visual snow then. I have some very strange theories. I won't say strange, it's not strange to me. It's not strange to me. I can see how my theories would be strange to anybody else on the planet. But I have some very interesting theories about visual snow. I don't know if you caught that stream. Was that my last one I did? That was a fun conversation too. Very different. We got into some metaphysics stuff. People find metaphysics like scary or intimidating. I'm like, why? It's so fun. It's just such a vast area to explore. And with incredible implications for like humanity and what we are and what we can do. I don't find it scary. I find it very exciting. Besides quantitative measurement from experiments with pupil contraction, Oh, Victor, so you're talking about like how to measure common fantasia, or like get more of like an objective measure of it. Is that more along the lines of what you're talking about, or what you're kind of alluding to or trying to get at? Yeah, we need something like that. There's a process called binocular rivalry that is apparently good for that. I'm not sure if it can differentiate though between hypophantasia and common fantasia. There's some neuroscientists the guys that originated that, Dr. Joel Pearson and his lab at University of South Wales, they came up with the process. They stumbled on it. And a bunch of labs tried it, but they haven't been able to reproduce it, except for one lab, one group, led by Dr. Merlin Monzel. He's a really cool guy. Really cool guy. Him and his team showed the same results as Dr. Pearson's lab. So, and they shared their stuff with me. I just have to try to integrate it and reproduce it and then tweak it to work across a screen, like if somebody's just sitting at home. I really want to get on that though, because if we can develop some sort of at-home measurement process, objective measurement process, man, that would help so much for studies and diagnosis and problem solving, questions along the lines of all the different types of experiences and stuff. Making sure I'm not totally filling up my hard drive with the recording of this live stream. Where on the spectrum would I be placed with little to no control, but experience detailed conceptual flashes? Hypophantasia. That would be hypophantasia. Little control, hypophantasia. Absolutely no control. I've seen some papers where they lump in aphantasia with no control. So if somebody has flashes of imagery, but it's not up to them what is flashing, some places have lumped that into aphantasia. I'm hesitant to do that because that would indicate that the person has some functioning mind's eye and some fashion. I prefer aphantasia to just be strictly no mind's eye at all. No thought of in visual form at all. I'm not sure if that's well defined in some of the research, but I would put, if you ask me, which you are, I would put you with little to no control of flashing like that in your mind's eye, hypophantasia. So true, metaphysics feels like a realm of possibility that's not limited to physicality. Yeah, well, what's funny about what you just said is I have a kind of, like I'm a philosopher at heart too and an engineer at heart and all these things, right? I have a little bit different of a philosophical take on metaphysics than what you just said. Because what you just said is very natural to think of it like that. It would be a realm outside of the physical. Which I guess is true, but that's true also for photons. That's true also for electromagnetic radiation. It's not a physical phenomenon, the electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves can pass right through you, right? So those don't adhere. They might get slowed down by certain materials, but those don't adhere to what we consider our physical reality, right? If you take a water gun, you spray it at the wall, there's not going to be much water on the other side. Radio waves do pass through things. So even that is a non-physical phenomenon. And I think of metaphysics like what people call spiritual. I think of it like that. That it's a non-physical phenomenon most of the time, but it's still occupying physical space sometimes. Whatever we're talking about. It has some rooting in physical reality because we're physical beings, mostly, experiencing a phenomenon. We're able to, pick up on something or experience something in the physical realm, right? It's like people call it supernatural, but I'm like, that term doesn't really make sense to me because it's all natural. It's all in nature. It's all you're experiencing on this side of nature. So supernatural doesn't make much sense as a term to me. And I'd like to think, to give an example, I'd like to think that the stuff that we term supernatural or metaphysical, we just lack proper detection devices to be able to objectively measure those things. Just like before we understood how water boiled, before we understood that heat, infrared radiation was exciting the atoms and spreading out the molecules so that they had more space, right, and transitioning into vapor. Before we knew all that stuff, there were a bunch of theories about how water boiled, but nobody really knew. That doesn't mean that water didn't boil, obviously. I mean, that's a much easier one to sort of to tell because it's a physical thing that you're watching happening right in front of your eyes. But I wonder what they thought. Like, can you imagine being back centuries, not knowing how water's boiling, that it's turning into vapor, and just going, I don't know, I turn on the fire and after like 30 minutes, the water dissolves. The water disappears. Where does the water go? You know? I haven't looked that up, like when we discovered vapor, but I was looking up when we discovered the reason for water boiling and transitioning to vapor. It's really interesting. So my point is, like, just because we didn't understand how it worked or what was happening didn't mean it wasn't happening. Obviously, right? So with metaphysics, with psionic phenomena, just because we don't understand how it works doesn't mean it's not happening, right? And we need data. We need more data, which there's decades of data, actually. We need data to be able to see whether it's working or not. Bummer is a lot of physicists and stuff like that, and just strictly material thinkers, materialists, like straight-edge materialists, won't even look at the data because they're like, well, it's impossible anyway, so we're not even going to look at data about it. And I'm like, that's not science. That's not curiosity. If there's a phenomena happening, let's explore it, right? So, yeah, and then if you think of like radio waves, before FM and AM radio waves were discovered, they existed. You know, we didn't always know microwaves existed. They're there, but we didn't have the proper measurement tools or measurement methodologies or whatever to detect them. That's more how I see, personally, the metaphysical conversation. It's like there might actually be some stuff that's there that we lack proper detection methods, right? And maybe our mind right now is the best detection method. And that's why those things are still subjective and locked in our own consciousness. But if we could figure out a way to objectively measure, let's say, like, let's just take any sort of phenomena, right? An angelic being or something. That kind of denotes belief, but let's put away the belief. Let's say extra-dimensional being, right? Let's say if there was an extra-dimensional being that didn't have physicality but was conscious in some fashion, well, they could exist, and if we lack the proper detection devices to be able to see them or to tell that they're there from this side of reality, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't be none the wiser. We'd be none the wiser, right? So, yeah, that's like some of my framing for metaphysics. Is like we just need better detection devices, likely, to understand the full breadth of what reality actually is. Clearly real because you're experiencing it here, right here. Yeah. Non-subjective. It's objective. So water boiling is an objectively observed phenomenon. There's not a question as to whether or not it's happening. You're physically watching it right then and there, right? There's other things that happen in physical space that you can't observe like that, like electromagnetic radiation, let's say gamma or microwaves or something. Those are passing through the cosmos all the time, but we can't physically see them, right? Doesn't mean they're not there, is my point. Would you put equals between visual experience of a dream, memory, and visualization? What do you mean? Like a dream equals a memory equals a visualization? Not for everybody. Not for everybody, for sure. They can. But a dream is better, in my opinion, like a vivid dream is way better classified as a prophantasic experience. Because it typically will feel like people are seeing something with their eyes. You know. Because you're asleep. Your brain is only processing your visual stage from your mental landscape, not your physical. Hank, thank you for joining. Yeah, it was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Have a good day. For me, when they scale down, as I mentioned, dream being equal to normal vision, yeah, that was my point, exactly, for sure. Better akin to a prophantasic experience, like an extreme one, though, especially if somebody has vivid dreams. But yeah, for people, like, it depends on where somebody's at on the spectrum as their baseline. So if somebody experiences hypophantasia as a base, then the dream may be way more vivid than the memory, right? And a memory may be way more vivid than a visualization. It's interesting. I find depending on what you visualize, things could be more vivid depending on the subject. So if somebody visualizes something that's very familiar with them, odds are it'll be more vivid. If somebody tries to visualize something that's very novel, like we did earlier with describing those animals, then it's not going to be very vivid. For most people, hyperphantasics are not most people. They would be the exception to that. So I'm going to wait, guys, to see if there's any other questions. And if the questions dry up, I'll go ahead and call it a day. This was a lot of fun. I want to do longer streams like this too, like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I just kind of have to, it takes some prep. I like to come in with some idea of what I'm going to be talking about and how long stuff will take. But I like today how we free flowed into like creating a new example. That was a lot of fun. And that could absolutely be something we do more in the future. Even like interviews and stuff, if I want to take callers or something, that'd be pretty cool too. Let me see, question here. Could aphantasia be caused by some type of trauma, being that aphantasia also affects the memory? And if neutralizing the trauma would trigger that, would that trigger the mind's eye visualizing into not working? Yes. Yes. From some of the papers, we have seen, not we as in me. Go ahead, just post your questions, type your questions in, everybody. What was I saying? Oh, some of the papers have demonstrated that sometimes, like the one way that we know aphantasia can be acquired is through traumatic experience. It's almost like the psyche, in protecting itself and surviving, it's actually not a bad thing, right? But in surviving, it turns off the visual component of the memory of what happened. Yeah. So what I recommend to people, this is good to keep in mind. If you're looking at training your visualization and making your vivid, your imagery much better, but you think that your experience of aphantasia or hypophantasia may be linked to a clear traumatic event in life, I highly recommend being very, very cautious and very careful about that. Because on the other side of unlocking your mind's eye again, you might not know what type of emotional stuff is waiting to be processed. And it can sometimes throw people for a loop. I've worked with 2 people that had that happen. They knew that going into the training that maybe was going to happen, and they had proper support systems in place, like therapy and stuff. That when their mind's eye kicked open and some stuff came up like that, they were able to work through it, but it was uncomfortable. But I knew that, and they knew that going in. So just be aware, if you want to like train your mind's eye, it comes with some amount of risk, especially if your mind's eye is shut off due to trauma. So, like if you're in the camp of like, I used to visualize real strong when I was this age, and then after this age, when I fell out of the tree or something, my mind's eye wouldn't flip back on. That's a sign to be very cautious. Let's see. Some guy asks, How vivid would you say prophantasia is? Oh, my prophantasia? And what is your routine for training prophantasia? So my prophantasia, like I did an example earlier. Let me pull it back up. This is not perfect, okay? But this isn't too bad. Like if I close my eyes and it's too bright. It's too bright. If I close my eyes and I project a triangle, it's not quite this bright. It can be, like if I'm on a good day, just like training anything, you have good days, bad days. It can be like this, but typically it's not quite that bright. So that's like usually where I'm at. My routine for training prophantasia, I haven't had much of a routine for quite a while. I'm just starting to get back into the regular training of it, and it kind of free flows, man. It's not very defined. It's like I'll spend some time looking at the visual snow. I'll spend some time projecting shapes into the visual snow. I'll spend some time just with a blindfold on. Where's all my blindfolds? Oh, this one, I don't want to get docked for having this on stream on YouTube, but this one's nice. It's called a mindfold. I guess I'm just gonna say it anyway. It's called a mindfold. So you can get these on Amazon. It like blocks out almost the entirety of light for you. So having one of those on and like just sitting with it and observing kind of your canvas of what is happening in your mind is helpful. Messing with the phosphenes and the phosphene waves, right? These are all ideas of how you can train prophantasia. After image retention, like we were kind of doing earlier. That wasn't our objective, but you can use after imagery with shapes and stuff like that. If you look on my blog, I have a bunch of exercises. You can kind of piece together your own practice. On my mega guide, my open source thing. Can prophantasia be developed from closed visuals, from closed eye visuals alone, like adjusting the waves of colors that show up? Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure yet. Like for instance, if somebody closes their eyes and they have these kind of blobbish, we call them phosphene waves now. I used to call them blobulars, different colors and stuff kind of swinging through. I'm not sure if those things if you can learn how to control those things into like a coherent image. Like let's say you have a blue one and let's say you have a yellow one. I'm not sure if eventually with enough practice you could make the yellow one look like this and the blue one look like this. I don't know. What I do know, what I have experienced myself, is a phosphene wave widening out and becoming a window to somewhere else. The phosphene wave itself was static in color. It was probably like blue or purple or something. And then through it, I saw like a grassy field. So I've had that experience quite a few times. So more likely, instead of like trying to compile like vectors and pixels of a phosphene wave into different coherent images, maybe that's possible, but I'm not sure. More likely, the objective should be widening out the phosphene wave so that you can see through it to whatever you're trying to see. At least that's been my experience. And I've talked to other people who had the same experience. So right now, theoretically, that's where things are at. That's what I would think would be good to work on. Is hyperphantasia so vivid to the point where you can see a full chessboard and calculate lines? It would depend on a few different things. For that, so if somebody's a hyperphantasic and they have a very accurate visual memory as well, sometimes that's not always the case, but if they did, then sure. Yeah, they could visualize the different the different lines and the different aspects of the pieces even, They'd probably be able to swap out backgrounds, stuff like that, yeah. Hyperphantasia, yep. Do you think that chess players that play blindfolded use mind's eye or more of a data approach? Oof, I don't know. We'd have to ask them. You'd have to ask them like how they're retaining the data or how they're processing the data consciously, right? For some, it may be one, for some it may be the other, or maybe a mix or both. Good question. For hypophants, when the components of visualization are still non-visual, not joined into a singular image, how does one go about making them combine into a coherent image? I'd say one thing to focus on for somebody in that position would be brainwave states. So allowing the brain to slow down and getting used to how it feels to click into these different kind of altered states, like an alpha wave, that can very much help. Because a lot of times there is subconscious information. It's just the trick is how to bring it conscious, right? So maybe getting into a nice, deep, relaxed point alpha wave and then put on an audiobook or something might help. But there's examples on my mega guide of what to actually practice depending on where you're at. So I'd suggest looking at that. It's free. Open source. When you try to combine non-visual elements, you often try to connect the sensation to my eyes in some way. Makes sense, I think. Try to combine non-visual elements. So like you're trying to combine non-visual elements in your mind's eye, but you link it to your eye? I'm curious. Neil, you're a chess player and you can't see ahead. I play by the seat of my pants constantly. You lose a lot. So is that like a real common skill for high-level chess players to be able to see and maintain the sort of board positions in their mind? That's crazy. That's what happened with phosphenes widening and opening a window into another reality. So you had the same experience, Ali? Pixel gems? You had the same experience? I'm very curious about people reporting that because it's been a commonality I've seen. And I'm onto something. Wahaha. Is there some sort of in-between of mind's eye and prophantasia? For example, why can some people only visualize with eyes closed? Prophantasia and mind's eye, I find overlap more like when you're on the brink of sleep. Because then it's hard to tell sometimes if it was like in here or out here, right? That being said, though, all of these things are so subjective and so individual that there may be some in-between of mind's eye and prophantasia, but typically it's like if something's not physically seen, then it's clearly not prophantasia, right? So, and why can some people only visualize with eyes closed? I'm not sure. Maybe their conscious mind is only retaining one kind of area or stage at a time, right? Like you have the real world stage and you have your mind stage. Maybe for whatever reason their brain's not so good at multitasking in that sense. How can you improve your visual memory? Memory is not my expertise, so I won't pretend to know. For that sort of thing, I think it would be more beneficial to ask somebody that is like an expert in memory, right? That being said, I have noticed that people that I've worked with, when they get breakthrough or like they make progress in their mind's eye, that one of the natural byproducts, not every time, but oftentimes can be that they have memories come back that are visual in nature, where they didn't have that before. So now the accuracy of your visual memory, though, I don't know. Is that what I just mentioned more to me is like, well, the brain is starting to process memory visually, not necessarily remembering more accurately. That's a whole different ballgame. And I wouldn't pretend to know. High-level chess players can play against multiple people at once blindfolded. It's like crazy. And they must have some sort of like conscious token to like encode where they left off, right? Because their attention goes to a different board when they come back, maybe like a mnemonic device or something, where they can come back and like pick up the save state. You know what I'm trying to say? That's so fascinating. You can focus on a sensation and then you'll build visual Building with your visual snow. Yep, totally. That's always where I start with people learning Prophantasia. We just did this 7-day challenge in my Discord server. Was anybody in there? I had like a Prophantasia challenge over 7 days. It was pretty killer, actually. It was really good. I was pretty stoked at how it turned out. If you're not in my Discord server, make sure to jump in there. The description has my link, because I want to do challenges at least every quarter or something like that. Maybe even more, for different things. Like 1 week Prophantasia challenge, another week Hypophantasia, another week simulating aphantasia, another week, all these different cognitive skills, psi ability, remote viewing. Like getting people their first experience in remote viewing would be super cool, because it's so wild when you get it down. Max level of blobulars. No, don't call them that still. I know it's a good name. It's a fun name. We can call them that. We can call them that. If I write a paper and we release some more information, I'll call them phosphine waves. But blobulars, it's not a bad name. Tangled mess of black lines with purple outlines, almost as bright as dim LED and morphing. Yeah. Yep. Me too. But the times I've had them stretch out and become a window it's awesome. It's so freaking cool. Just wanted to say thank you for all you do for the... Oh, you're welcome. Shining beacon of hope. Hey, I'm glad. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, here's the thing. You're getting the overflow from my own approach to my own life. Because when I hear something that I can't do, if I want to do it, I don't take no for an answer. Like, I just don't. I developed Prophantasia by hearing a guy at a conference go, when I close my eyes, he was a spiritual teacher guy. He's like, when I close my eyes, I can see everything. I see a bunch of stuff. It's not just black. I never had that. And I'm like, dang, I want that. I could always visually imagine, but I was like, I want that. It didn't even have a name, that skill. So I just went home and I freaking developed it for myself. I was like, if I want that, how would I go about getting it? And I came up with a process, and it worked. And it works for other people. So I'm like, our brain is so plastic, Don't let anybody tell you can't. Especially yourself. That's the one that'll get us, is when we tell ourselves we can't. Then we're then we got nothing. We got no option. I will not say I can't. I refuse. If there's something I want to do, I'm going to try to go for it until I either get it or I'm dead. That's it. And I might take a break here and there and come back to it, but that's how I work. That's how my mind works. I'm like, no. Our brain is more than capable of adjusting all our experience. It's so plastic. The strides we've had in the last 30 years of neuroplasticity is proof enough that whatever we're currently experiencing, we should be able to change it to some degree, right? That's my methodology. Can you explain more on the widening window to another reality thing? Yeah. So I'd have to track it down. I don't know if I can track it down very easily right now. But on my videos, on my YouTube channel, on my Prophantasia series, there's examples in there where sometimes phosphines are usually like a little flicker, right? Like a little just flash. That's a phosphine when your brain is interpreting light where there is none. A phosphine wave is when they kind of flow around like this. It's a common thing that meditators experience. Sometimes too, they can start from behind and kind of close in like this, pulsating, usually rhythmic. Or they can open like this or flow this way or this way, whatever. So I've had on more than one occasion where I was observing the phosphine waves going around. Different color, usually it's one static color. Right now, typically mine are green. So they're flowing around like this. and they kind of condense down into a center point, and then the single center point like expanded like this, and it kind of opened, and through it was another environment I was seeing. Like it turned into a lucid dream where I consciously went through the phosphene window, the phosphene wave, and I was able to walk around somewhere completely different, more like a lucid dream. So that's what we're talking about with like widening out phosphenes, right? Is potentially you could use them as viewing windows to see other things, other places, other things, imagine things, you know, maybe not imagine things. That's what I'm really excited about. Don't know if you guys have come across the blindfold seeing. That's starting to get more popular in conversation right now. I have a friend who, I won't say her name because I haven't asked people permission. I need to ask them. But I have a friend, one of my really, really good friends, who is so freaking good at blindfold seeing, it's ridiculous. It's like her brain will just see through whatever you put in front of her. And you can layer up as many layers as you want. You know, you put this thing on her, you take a freaking blanket, you put a mask even over that, and her brain will just see through it. It's wild, and I'm not exaggerating. And so I've talked with her a lot and tried to reverse engineer how she got to where she's at and the commonalities between that and what I experience. And part of that is the phosphene waves. So from your Sufi understanding, there's a lot of masters who have created realms which only they can access, or they've taken students to. That makes sense to me. Yeah, we'd have to get into some like heavy metaphysical concepts to even make that make sense to most people, but yeah, it makes sense to me. The feeling, oh my gosh, I just remembered this. I won't share. This is for another time. Like, my work has been so just based on mind stuff for so long, like especially when I was called Aphantasia Meow only, right? That I'm sure some of my audience was a little alienated after I started talking about the wilder stuff. But it's like, it's all in me. It's all that. That's the stuff I'm really curious about anyway. So I'm curious too about mind's eye, obviously, but my mind always wants to understand reality. So definitely have the waves. Hang on. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit. I'm a little behind on the comments. The feeling your hand around your body exercise confirmed to me that my tendency to disassociate makes my access to sensory experience low. Makes sense. I've actually noticed this before too. I've noticed that before with people. Penguino. Agent Penguino 007. I've noticed that too. That sometimes people will have this like low propensity to absorbing information in their environment, maybe through some sort of disassociation that causes their mind's eye to be diminished. Very, very good observation. That's some self-awareness right there. Well done. Kudos. Would you recommend practicing profantasia and hyperphantasia at the same time? It couldn't hurt. I don't see why not. Like if you want to, you know, whatever's fun. It's not going to diminish one or the other if you do one or the other or both or, yeah. I definitely have the waves, but they are not really that vivid. Like they are like an impressions on the visual snow for me. You can kind of learn how to increase them. Meditation really helps. Some days mine are less vivid than others. Brain state is huge, like being in the proper state for it. And then I found like with my blindfold that I showed you guys, if I'm wearing that and I just observe for a long time, it helps to entrain my brain, and I should say it helps to train my brain to observe more of that sort of phenomenon, and it almost gets louder, like the volume dial starts to turn up on it. Is blindfold seeing called mind sight? Some people call it that. Yes, I don't prefer that term, because with that term it becomes too unclear whether we're talking about mind's eye seeing or projected or prophantasia. What we're calling with the blindfold seeing, it's prophantasia. It's like physical sight. It's undifferentiatable. to physical sight. So when my friend sees through the layers, like whatever you put on her, she sees as if her eyes were open and nothing is occluding her eyes. It's trippy. I've had a measure of it, but nowhere near where she's at yet. I'm working on it. I'll get there. You've seen people of videos doing that, but you always thought it was fake. Yeah, it's like one of these things until you've witnessed somebody that's really good at it, like my friend. Until you've witnessed it firsthand, it's very unbelievable. It's hard to grasp. And then the biggest objective, like the biggest measure is, of course, getting it yourself, having a measure of it happen yourself. Then it's like, oh, well, okay, if I can do that amount, then of course other people can do more, like my friend. How can you see through stuff? Exactly. It's a huge thing. It's like I've been processing this a whole ton this past weekend, where I have this opinion. I'll talk more about this as I go. I need to lay some foundation within my work, within my public work about all this stuff. But I have this opinion that physics, as we understand it, and the physics field will be completely stuck as a field until we start to try to understand these other types of phenomenon, like what my friend can do. Then that will give rise to new physics. And until then, it's all just going to be these dead ends, like string theory. I've been reading a book on string theory, so it's on my mind. Don't get me started talking about that right now. My brain will kick into overdrive trying to understand and dissect all this stuff and come up with new theories that it was exhausting this past weekend. It was exciting, but whew, I had to play Smash Brothers 2 nights ago just to shut my brain up. It would not let me relax. Has she used randomized codes, numbers seen through the blindfold? Yep. You could randomize whatever you want with her. Yeah. She can see through anything to any subject, anything. Doesn't matter what's in front. Is that what you mean? Like, hey, try to read this 4-digit code that we randomly generated? Yeah. Never saw an example of that, only reading a book, which can be memorized and kids climbing around. Yeah. Yep. So there's this event coming up in, I'll be there, Charlottesville in August, called the Sci Games. They're going to have like a prize pool where a bunch of skeptics are going to be pulling money into a prize pool, and they're going to try to objectively demonstrate these abilities, specifically the mind sight. So we'll see. That'll be kind of interesting. What's funny, though, is Psi research has shown again and again that people that can demonstrate have a much harder time experiencing the things that they did before when somebody's extremely skeptical around them. So like if a research team brings somebody in that claims they can do it, and let's say theoretically, normally they can do it, right? Just theoretically. Let's say they can see through a blindfold. With no external light coming in, they can see, okay? If a research team has them in to demonstrate and to take data, but they're extremely scrutinizing and they're extremely unpleasant, sometimes that will shut the ability off. It's this weird effect within Psi research. So it's like important not to be too scrutinizing, and to be just a regular human, like be a nice person, and let's not just assume that everybody's lying. And that's a lot of how people within skeptic research approaches the conversation, and it's just not beneficial. It's like just not helpful. Saw it on Matrix. I don't know what that channel is, but yeah, say climbing children would be convincing. Can't imagine their parents letting them do that thing when they can't see. Yeah, I agree with take on physics. Yeah, physics is going to be at a total dead end, man, until we can grow up and try to understand some of these other types of phenomenon. We need new physics. Like as long as it's in the realm of string theory, where we would literally need a device the size of the galaxy with our current power levels and detection levels to be able to tell if there are strings or not. That doesn't work. It goes nowhere. You can come up with whatever math you want, but we use 0 in math all the time, but that doesn't actually exist. 0 is just nothing. So physics will need to get a little daring. Definitely hypo. Yep. I'm looking for questions here. Yeah, you heard of a guy riding through traffic totally blindfolded? Yep. So some of those entertainers, I even question if they're actually doing it or not. Because you could have a mask that looks like it doesn't have holes or whatever, but it does, right? So, but I've seen it enough firsthand and had my own experience with it that I know the phenomenon's legit. So it's like, if people are faking it, like entertainer-wise, like a magician, it's a bummer because it just discredits the people that could actually do it. Sucks. Share the string theory book name, make a book club discussion on the Discord. Hey, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Love that multidisciplinary. Yeah. Yeah, I like coding. I like all sorts of stuff. I'm deep into physics right now. I actually need to. I'm good with physics conceptually. Where I lack in physics is the math. So, like, conceptually wise, I understand a lot of the foundations of physics and string theory and general relativity, all that, quantum mechanics. But I just don't understand the math. I wish I did, because I want to work on my own theories, but I would want to make sure that my math isn't recursive in any form, and I just can't do it yet. There's that word. I don't like that word. I'm not doing it yet. I don't know math to that extent. Don't you think if this becomes more mainstream, it could be used against people, such as influencing people without permission or looking into homes through walls? Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. People like to be a little rose-colored glasses with it and go, well, the universe knows. Like, if you have a bad intention or you want to control people with these abilities, it won't work for you. Sorry to break it to you, not the case. You can use a hammer to nail a nail in, right? Exactly what it's designed for. Or pull a nail out. You can also use a hammer to like hurt somebody or to break stuff that you're not supposed to. That's not a good use for a hammer. A hammer's a tool, right? I can use my hand for something productive. I can use my hand for something non-productive and destructive. Same thing with those other abilities. You can use it for something that's productive, or you can use it like an asshole and mess with somebody or whatever. Not cool, right? That being said, this would take more metaphysical conversation, but I do think there's ways as individuals we can kind of protect our zone, so to speak. But that's a whole nother conversation. Spooky Zoomy, I hear you. I'm sorry. Your experience of aphantasia is so unpleasant. This has been really interesting and fun. Yeah, it has been. Are you streaming on specific days, just here and there? My streams will be every Thursday. That's what I'm aiming for. I skipped a couple weeks, I think. It's odd. Like, I'm still trying to find my rhythm in like content creation, and I like lives the best. So my problem is, and it's something I just need to work and get over. This is just full disclosure, Alec here. I'm not good at presenting a false version of myself. The problem I'm finding is, like, if I'm not excited about a topic, I just don't want to talk, you know? So last night I was writing down a bunch of brainstorm ideas because I don't want to get stuck not streaming every week. I enjoy it. And it's the best way I've found for myself to release content. So I want like a master list to fall back on, right? So I was writing that up and nothing even sounded exciting to talk about today until I just had the thought out of nowhere. Oh, I should give a live demonstration of simulating aphantasia like I figured out how to do. And then I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And then it's just, of course, I'm going to not miss today. But if it's just not a topic I'm excited about. So wish me luck. I don't know. There's no easy answer there. I just have to stop being a goober about it and write down a bunch of ideas and then figure out which one I'm excited about every week. So, but that's why I didn't stream for a couple weeks, just because like I wasn't thinking of anything that was exciting to talk about. And you're welcome. I appreciate the thanks too. Sometimes it's weird, you know, like speaking to the nebula, the ether, having online presence, because you don't always hear how you impact people or you know, not that I need appreciation to keep going. I'll keep doing my stuff no matter what. But it is nice to hear, so appreciate you saying thanks. Is there a way to cure aphantasia? I would say, see you, Neil. Thanks for joining, man. Awesome having you. Jump into the Discord if you're not in there yet. I would say in my opinion, there's no solid way to cure aphantasia. I don't like that word to use if we're talking about adjusting your experience of aphantasia. There's no pill you can take. There's no device you can put on. There's nothing like that. What there does seem to be are certain mental processes you can initiate with yourself to generate mind's eye activity. Now, is this something that everybody can do? We can't say that yet. What I can say is many people have. Many people have. To give an example, or just an illustration of how many people, I've worked with over 100 people over the past 7 years, one-on-one. I started in 2018, so what is that? Yeah, 7 years. I worked with over 100 people, and 93+% of them had something new happen. Some small, some maybe only one or two little things, some really big, and then everywhere in between, but 93% of them had something happen. So it does seem likely that if somebody works on their experience, that they would be able to adjust their experience and start experiencing something new. I can't say that's everybody. Please hear me. I don't like false claims, and as much as I can avoid them, I'll try. And I'll try to tell you what's my speculation. But I do think it seems like most people could make progress. Yeah. Not cure. And I don't know the extent of the progress that people can make. But it seems there is a way to start generating mind's eye activity. I've worked with too many people that started from aphantasia and made progress to say anything different at this point. I would be untrue to myself if I did that. And I sure as hell am not going to do that. Strange question. You know what a tulpa is? Yeah, not a strange question. That's very related to prophantasia. Yeah. So a tulpa is, I think Jung, I'm not sure if Jung originated the term, but he definitely popularized it. If he didn't originate it, he might have originated it. But it's just the idea of a sort of like a holographic character or shape, or it's essentially what we consider a projected image. It would be something occupying physical vision, right? That's not actually there. So you project a triangle on a wall, that's a tulpa of a triangle. Yep. People have taken that concept and said, usually when you ask about tulpa, we're talking about like a full-blown character. Like somebody has created a character in their mind, almost like a split personality that is controlled and measured. They've created a character that they begin to see in their physical environment. That's called tulpamency. I'm not sure. It's interesting if people want to do that. You know, it's not something that's interested me. I don't really want that experience. But if something was objectively there, I would definitely want to see it. But not something that I put there. What are your thoughts on if this side of physics opens up to the same psi stuff, chi energy related stuff, versus technology because of the whole idea of becoming interplanetary species? If this side of physics opens up. I mean, in the sense, it could be like Star Wars with Jedi powers and tech. Yeah, it could. That's my thought. It could. It very well could become something like that. Where consciousness and what we consider psi I don't even really like that term, but for lack of a better term, that's what the government called their research, psi. Where psi integrates and relates more with technology, you know? I think that could be. And us actually figuring out the physics of those phenomena could yield technology along those veins. It's frustrating how poo-pooed that part of the conversation is. Like, I've had psionic experiences my whole life. So I can understand how if somebody grows up without any of that at all, no propensity for it, no natural ability toward it, no frame of reference for it, and then they just accept that their world is material and that's it, their reality, I could see how it would be really hard to entertain that thought. That's where personal experience comes into play, because if somebody has their own personal experience with something, it becomes real to them, right? Finally. But it's like these materialist physicists and stuff kind of drive me crazy because they won't even look at the papers. They won't look at the data. It's like, it's a real bummer. And there's decades of data that demonstrates psi ability. So, what methods, techniques do you recommend? Heard psychedelics can help induce mental imagery in some people. Some people, I haven't found that to be the case though. You'll hear all sorts of stuff along those lines. Spooky, if you haven't jumped into the Discord server yet that I run, that's a community of people that work on stuff like this. And a lot of my links and stuff are posted in there. So I would recommend tapping into that because there's a lot to what you just asked. But all my information along those lines is open source. So I could either spend 20 minutes breaking down all the concepts and stuff, or you could just have at it with everything I already have out there. Good question though. So my website, and then my blog, and then there's something called the Visualization Training Mega Guide that has all my exercises in it. And the main concepts and tenets. I actually have to go back in and rewrite some of it because I need to update it, but it's still really good. Also, how did you train yourself to have faith that improvement is possible? Oh, it feels like doubt has been the biggest block to my own progress. Oh man, this is a deep question, Penguino. So your brain hasn't been able to to train perceive improvement? Yeah. Negativity bias. Oh man, something I talk with my clients about constantly. My view on this aspect you just asked about is negativity bias, or limitation bias, let's call it, because that's better. Because sometimes it's not even that we're being negative. Sometimes it's our perceived limitation. Sometimes that perceived limitation is so strong that it will even overwrite progress. I've seen that happen with clients. They had a breakthrough and then a few months later they don't remember the progress ever happening at all because their limitation bias is so strong. So I'm trying to form the thought and really speak thoughtfully about what you ask, because it's a deep question. For me, I think I was always a little naturally geared to not take failure as a sign that I couldn't do something. I was always naturally attracted to skills and stuff growing up that took a lot of practice and that took a lot of failure. So one of the things I got most addicted to growing up was skateboarding. Skateboarding is such a freaking technical sport, man. You have to just do the smallest little foot movements. Hey, see ya, Pixel. Good to have you. Thank you. Thanks for joining. It's fun seeing people jump in from the Discord server. But skateboarding, the smallest movement of your ankle and your foot will make the board do wildly different things. So to learn one basic trick takes weeks of failing. So I just was always naturally gravitating towards skills like that. My favorite video games growing up were the ones that were just hard enough that they drive me crazy, but that I could finally beat. Not everybody's like that. A lot of people like entertaining themselves or developing things that are a little easier. I was never like that. I like to challenge. I like showing to myself at the end of it that I could do it, whatever it was, skateboarding, snowboarding, whatever. So for me, I would try, like if somebody's not naturally geared towards that, I would develop that. I would cultivate that attitude. It can help to have a physical skill. Pick something that feels like you could never be good at it and watch yourself get good at it over a month and a half. Even marginally, right? And if you get addicted to it, stick with it. And then after a year, you'll surprise yourself. You'll be like, holy crap, I came so far. Once you know that you can come far in whatever it is, you can do that with other stuff. But staying consistent with a skill like that always takes an awareness, or almost not an awareness. It's almost like an intentional ignoring of the limitation bias that we have on ourselves. Right now, I have a limitation bias of my own that I'm developing too, through seeing without my eyes. I've had moments where it kicks in, so I know my brain can do it, but I still come up against a limitation bias where I have a narrative saying that I can't do it. And I don't want that narrative, and I will do whatever it takes to develop myself out of that narrative. I hope that answered your question. There's a lot to that. That's something I could talk about for a whole stream, honestly. Do you think the sheep and goat effect by itself is good proof for psi? I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. Is that like the men who stare at goats thing? I haven't come across that effect name. I'm not very well researched, by the way, if we're talking about psi stuff. A lot of my own psi, or a lot of like my stance on psi has been personal experience, and then experience with others and objective experience. I've read some of the research from the government programs that they ran in the 70s and beyond. But I'm not hugely initiated into the research. I just know that there have been tons of groups that run tons of studies and have tons of data. I wouldn't even be able to tell you what data. Sorry with the chess questions. Oh, no, I don't mind. Ask whatever you feel like. In your opinion, which one would you say works best for making moves in your head, profantasia or hyperphantasia? I would say hyperphantasia. If I had to guess, I don't do this for myself, but I would guess hyperphantasia. Because hyperphantasia, you have a screen in your mind, or the mental scene, but you don't have to adjust what you're physically looking at. That would be ideal for chess, because you could just tune into it, keep your eyes open, but tune into it when you need it, And then pairing that with an extremely accurate visual memory, I could see how that would be pretty useful. Answers have been all super helpful. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Generous with my time. You're welcome. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't feel like I'm being generous. It just feels fun to talk about. That's why I like doing live streams. Like, I don't like cranking out YouTube videos. Live streams, though, if I'm excited about something, oh man, it's such a blast. Benefits and negatives of aphantasia. I'm not the best to ask this. I'm not the best to ask this question to, because my work has been mainly focused on like altering the experience of aphantasia in some measure, right? But just loosely off the top of what I know of the field of aphantasia, of the field of research, I would say this is not a complete list. Benefit, you could potentially retain trauma a lot less. This is something that people report fairly commonly with the experience of aphantasia, is they don't get absorbed into these traumatic experiences. And they don't seem to, some of them don't seem to get bothered for as long, if that makes sense. It's almost like their emotions have like a less permeable nature to them, where they retain, and they like a less permanent nature to them, where they retain and live out of a memory of something bad happening. Also, aphantasics tend to be very analytical thinkers by nature. So There was a big research pool done where they found that a high percentage of aphantasics were drawn towards analytical fields. So that's really cool. That can be like very beneficial, you know, finance, data, analytics, whatever, coding, that sort of stuff, technical fields. That can be very useful. Negatives, maybe that same study also showed, I think that was out of the University of South Wales, they also showed that aphantasics have a little less accurate memory, long term, I think. I'm not sure if it affected, don't quote me, we'd have to find the study and read it. But I don't believe it affected short term like working memory. I think it was more long term that it affected. So that could be a negative. Some people would say not being able to recall the face of their family members that passed on, a negative, right? Maybe like one negative could be not being able to plan a piece of art before you actually put everything down through the paint, which hyperphantasics would just naturally do. They'd think of the art piece before they start painting it. So, depends. Some people would say that not being able to remember certain times of their life visually would be an absolute benefit, you know. Others would say that's a negative. So that kind of largely comes down to interpretation too, and what you consider beneficial and negative. Even though there should be no difference if the tasks are based on chance picks. People that think they're good in psi tend to perform better at psi tasks that people, that's the goat. Is that the goat effect or whatever that was mentioned earlier? Yeah, I mean, that in and of itself is crazy to think about. That you might have some, let's say something should be by chance 50-50 and you have a split of 45, 45 for the people that think they can, and then 50-50 for the people that think they can't. That's trippy. That's in and of itself is not proof of like psionic ability necessarily, but that shows your consciousness is absolutely, what the craziest example of psi is? That all of the medical community, none of the physics community seem to even be wondering about or trying to understand the placebo effect. The placebo effect is crazy when you think about it. It can be 70% effective for somebody's body, depending on what is being tested. It can be 70% effective. That's absolutely insane that somebody could be given a placebo and their body would heal itself naturally just believing that they had the pill or the medication or whatever, but there was nothing in there. It was a sugar pill. Like that in and of itself to me is like, no, we need to understand consciousness and its effect on reality. Our own body, sure. You could say that, subconsciously it kicks in a healing process, something. You could root it very much in physicality still with that. But it's like, no, we need to understand what that is, what's happening, and what else can that affect, right? There's no data as to whether or not being an aphant would make somebody more emotionally intelligent, like have better emotional intelligence. I'm not sure. To answer that, I'd want better like actual data that we could look at, but we don't. As far as I know, we don't have anything like that. I've heard people go like, "I was jealous because I picture you doing something." Yeah. Aphantasics don't have to worry about that. Although for people with a more polyamorous leaning like myself, I don't got to worry about that either. It doesn't bother me. Polyamorous meaning like multiple loves, many loves, right? Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation I never thought I'd bring up on this stream. Is there still music going? Oh no. My music. I got music going. Has there been no music this entire time? I wanted like slow soft music in the background. I think I screwed it up. Now there should be. Whoops. Oh well. Having aphantasia has been destructive for my career in the animation industry. See, so good example of aphantasia being a hurdle, right? Depending on what field you're in, I can totally see that. Not something that somebody wouldn't be able to overcome and navigate around, but definitely would make it trickier to do certain things that other people that can visualize are just naturally doing. I'm an animator. That's so random. You guys both commented about animation, one after the other. Or did Raphael read that and comment? Felt no impact on your job? That's cool. Storyboarding is a big challenge to me. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Storyboarding. Because you'd have to like think of the scene before you put it out. Huh. Yeah. Storyboard artist, Agent Penguino, yeah. Shaman Buddha. I just noticed your name, your screen name. You have aphantasia. The only time I saw images was you're taking ketamine. Yep, some people report that. Conscious mind and the power of your brain is so strange, like getting pseudocyesis. I'm not sure what that is. Or false pregnancy. What? No, I didn't know that. Placebo is absolutely insane. And like materialists and physicists in medical community just goes, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's wild. Like, what about psi? Like, what if, like, theoretically, let's say psi wasn't real, but then through believing it was real, you could get like a 60 percentile out of something that's supposed to be 50-50? That's crazy. That proves that's recursive. That wouldn't even make sense. That would prove that psi is real, but as a result of you believing it's real. So yeah, placebo is absolutely nutso. And I want to understand all aspects of consciousness. Oh. There. Now there should be no echo with music. Bada bing, bada boom. Well, I'm glad I didn't have the music on that entire time then. Is it too loud? Let me know. I don't really know. I don't have a monitor. I should probably have one next time. I just don't have one right now. Yeah, that's crazy. I had no idea that people can believe themselves into having false pregnancies. The body's so trippy, man. The body is so trippy. Reality's trippy. Like, that's why my mind, especially with, like, I've been lucky to have more objective types of metaphysical experiences where me and another people group, at least person or people, have experienced the same thing at the same time. To sort of formulate what I think is happening. It's not all just been subjective. I don't just want to hallucinate reality. I want to understand how it actually does work. But that's why my mind goes straight to all that beyond stuff when we talk about placebo, because it's like, dude, if your brain can do that and give yourself false freaking pregnancy symptoms, then yeah, what else can it do? You know, what are the limitations of that? We don't know yet. And a lot of people don't even want to know. It's bizarre. I don't understand why. It's not scary to me. It doesn't threaten my view of reality. Makes it more exciting. A new realm of physics to explore. Like, why wouldn't I? You've been exploring your aphantasia for a few years now? Nice. I got to peek around my phone because it's my webcam. So glad you just come across your stream. Oh, cool. Is this your first time finding me? If so, I'm glad. Yeah. I knew there might be a way to change my aphantasia. Yeah. Yeah. Play around, man. Like, don't, or woman, or whatever. Politically correct. I shouldn't assume gender when we're doing anonymous YouTube conversations. Yeah, like, play around with it, you know? I said this earlier, but this is how I'm wired. If I want something, I'm not going to take no for an answer, and good luck. You know, I believe people can do it. If they want to adjust their change of aphantasia to at least a small degree, it's possible, it seems. It seems. Maybe not for everybody, but for a high number of people. Seems like it. First time, that's crazy. I wonder how you found me then. Did I just like pop up on your YouTube feed or something? I'm going to start cutting little sections out of my lives and doing YouTube shorts and stuff with that. And then my main videos on my channel will be like little 5-10 minute clips of this stuff from my lives. Because I like doing the lives. I don't like doing scripted YouTube videos. It drives me crazy. I just don't like it. I'll come and hang out with people and talk all day. But sitting down and trying to remember what I was supposed to say and having a script and like going into the editing and splicing it together, all the slides and stuff, it just drives me nuts. That's why my channel's been so neglected. Not anymore. Well, hey guys, my throat is getting tired. My voice is getting a little weak. I need to figure out how to project enough voice, or how to be loud enough and not have to talk so freaking loud. So I can talk for 5 hours and not have to shout. One last thing. I want to read this last comment. When you first learned about aphantasia, you were so sure you had it that your mind's eye turned off. Yeah. In contextualizing level. Oh my God. KV, this is such an important point that you're like, this is a huge banger of a topic to end the stream on. Limitation bias dictating your experience. Abso-freaking-lutely. I've seen this before too. I've seen this before where somebody maybe gets a breakthrough, their mind's eye starts kicking in, but their limitation bias, their narrative is that they can't visualize, and so it turns off after that. And it erases the idea that they ever had a breakthrough in the first place. Super trippy and so, so important. And what that tells me is those individuals never had, they either didn't know or they weren't intentional enough with with changing their limitation bias. The narrative internally that they can't visualize, or how they're framing it, right? So especially if somebody's a hypophantasic and then they learn about aphantasia and they contextualize mind's eye with projection and they close their eyes and go, oh, I don't have anything, I must be aphantasic. Yeah, I could totally see how what little mind's eye they do have would shut off. 100%. That's why my work is centered so much around projected imagery, because not enough of the studies, not enough of the literature is talking about it. And we finally coined it. We finally coined it as of 2022, you know. That's why I came up with that term, because it was super important. Too many people were coming across aphantasia. They may be a hyperphantasic, but they lack prophantasia, and they go, well, I have aphantasia. No. That's not useful. All right, guys. Well, that was a big banger of a topic to end the stream on. I'm going to get going. I need some water. I need some food. I don't know. I didn't even eat anything yet today. Been up for hours. But hey, thank you for joining me. What a freaking blast. Every Thursday is what I'm aiming for with these. I will always announce the live stream before I go live in my Discord server. So make sure you're in there. That's the quickest way to get access to anything I do. My newsletter too, but I just don't announce all the lives through the newsletter. So if you want to jump on the lives when I'm live, it's going to be around every Thursday at 2 EST. I may miss weeks here and there as I kind of get back in my rhythm of content creation. Just give me a little grace there. But if I do stream, it will be Thursdays. Okay? Thursdays, 2 p.m. to EST. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. Much love to everybody. Be safe. Have a great time exploring your conscious mind. Jump into the Discord. Let's chat about this when we're done. It's been really fun to see that re-enliven lately. So see you guys in there, all right? Thanks for joining. Talk soon. Bye-bye.